Hello, 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 and good morning. This is Donny Coram, your foreclosure deals coach, and this is the show where we discuss how normal people just like you can find, figure, fund, fix, and flip a foreclosure deal. A lot is happening in the real estate market right now, and this business that I have, a consulting firm, reaches out to people who are trying to get started in the real estate investment business. They want to buy a solid deal in the market, but they don't know where to locate that deal. They're not 100% certain on how to analyze the deal to make sure it's profitable. They're unsure, if you will, on funding the deal. Maybe they've got access to some capital, but they need to get the rest of the capital from a lender. Of course, they got to get the deal fixed, and then they have to flip the deal for a profit. So if that describes you, you're in the right place at the right time today on the Foreclosure Deals Coach podcast. Again, I am your host, Donny Coram, and I have a passion for this because I've done over 400 flips, largely in the Colorado market. And, over that time, I built a system that can help anybody to navigate the uncertainty of getting started in real estate investing. I call the system the foreclosure profit system because it starts at the acquisition of buying a foreclosure deal, not a house, mind you, but a deal, and it ends in flipping that deal for a minimum of a $25,000 profit. I have over 30 clients in the system now. My objective is to get to 50 clients right here in the local market in Colorado where I'm based. No matter where the clients are located now, we are doing deals in the Colorado market because that's where my infrastructure is. That's where my construction crews are. That's where a lot of my funding sources are located. That's simply where I'm better at finding deals because I know the market more intricately here in this marketplace. All right. So on today's show, I really wanted to discuss with you guys the tie-in between two of the 5 F stages, the first F being the figure or analysis stage, and the second being the fix stage. And I bring that up because a lot of clients I'm talking to right now are a little bit confused about how to structure the fix stage without proper analysis. So let's start with the old school methodology that a lot of people go into fix and flipping with. A lot of people go into it wanting to build the Taj Mahal, right? Either they live in a gorgeous house themselves, or God forbid, they've been watching these flipping shows and they see this overall crazy transformation of a property from an ugly property to a gorgeous remodel. And, they put in all these ridiculous fixtures. They put in a brand new pool and, gold-plated faucets and, countertops made out of platinum. I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but when you're watching the reality TV series, what you're not getting is any dose of actual reality as it relates to flipping. If you live in $1 million property, or you live even in an upper end home, a $500,000-$600,000 home, which is where a lot of my clients are, they've done well enough financially that they can now afford to invest some capital into a foreclosure flip, then it's easy to get biased, if you will, on what an end product flip is supposed to look like. Because, if you're comparing it to your home or a property you would like to buy, you can get easily skewed. So what I have to do as a coach is very often explain the gap between the analysis phase, which allows us to look at the market from an objective perspective, which is what is actually selling right now. Okay, so we want to see what the current trends in flipping is. The good news is the market leaves a lot of cues. It really tells us what the what's in, if you will, like what's the current factor and what people are currently buying. And that's important because as rates have gone up, the desires of the buyer have gone up a little bit. Obviously, in 2020 and 2021, when rates were so cheap, it was ridiculous. We saw that it was kind of easy, to find a buyer for properties when things were at 2%, 3% interest rates. It didn't take much. You didn't have to do much to the property to get it to a nice remodeled condition. But as rates have gone up, kind of logically, the buyer's going, well, if I'm going to spend a higher price for the property because prices have gone up, and I'm going to spend a higher monthly payment because interest rates have gone up, my expectations for the property have logically gone up as well. Now, this seems pretty intuitive when you say it out loud, right? However, it's very easy for the end buyer to get the investor buyer, to get a little bit biased about what they would like their property to look like. And then they start making decisions based on their desires, not necessarily what the market dictates. Does that make sense? So one of the factors in the coaching program is taking that bias out of the system and allowing us to look at this from a very subjective, here's what's selling, here's what it needs to look like to sell, and here's the basis for what we're going to spend on the remodel to do that. So it's the correlation, if you will, between the analysis phase, which we're looking at right before we buy and fund the property, and the fix stage, which we're looking at right after we fund the property. So once again, the 5 F's are find, figure, fund, fix, and flip. If you do proper analysis in the figure stage, when you get to the fix stage, things are going to go much better for you. You can actually find yourself staying at or below your remodeling budget, which is the objective, keeping in mind the remodel is not paid for out of pocket by you, the investor, but by the lenders that we work with. We do that by creating a rehab escrow that when we're analyzing the property, we determine what it's going to take to get it in the condition that we want it to be in to sell. And then we then fix it to that spec. The mistake that people make is they're fixing it with their own desires and, their own wallet even, if you will. And that results very often in one of two things happening. One, you end up under improving the property, resulting in it sitting on the market for much longer, having to get price reductions to get it sold, right? And then ultimately making less on the deal than you could have. The other bad factor is going to be if you over improve the property. Now you've got too much money into the deal. You have to sell it at a higher rate than the market will bear at that moment. You end up sitting on the property a little bit longer because you're waiting for a higher dollar figure, or you end up having to discount the property. And because you overspent on the remodel, you end up losing money on the deal. So in either case, not doing proper analysis between the figure stage and the fixed stage can very easily result in a less than or worst case scenario, unprofitable deal. So we walk you through that as part of the program, quite obviously. And guys, if my energy seems a little bit off today, my sincerest apologies. I am struggling with some kind of stomach virus thing. I don't know exactly what's been going on, but the last few days have been a little bit rough. So I'm a bit in recovery. So if the energy is not what you're used to from Donny, that is why. My sincerest apologies on that. But we're going to tough this through. I'm going to get through it. All is going to be well. So let's continue. So let's talk about doing deal analysis. We're going to quickly find a deal. And we do this all the time, but I want you to see how we're making this, from theory to an actuality here. Where do we find deals? We find deals all over, but one of the places I find a lot of deals are on Privy. And Privy is a tool that automatically, uses an AI, if you will, to look at the marketplace from a factor of if we were buying this deal, we would want to buy a deal that was at 75% or less of the value of the retail value, right? And then we would want to do our analysis from there. So I just very quickly picked one, a little more expensive than we're looking for deals price range wise right now, but it'll probably do the job. It's on Wold Avenue. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and I doubt that square footage is accurate. I'm going to guess that it's not counting the basement square footage, which is probably going to be another 600-700 square feet. So probably about 2,000 square feet. Pretty par for what we're looking for, right? First, we want to take a look because we're analyzing the property. And you can see here, it's actually not in terrible shape, right? Is this a good deal? Well, sometimes the good deals are just priced slightly below market because there's a motivation on the part of the seller that just wants to get rid of the property. Hey, William, thanks for tuning in today, buddy. I really appreciate you coming to the show. It means the world to me, man. Thank you so much for being here. So a lot of people, we start at that ability. We're looking at this thing at $405,000. What stands out to us right away? Well, the cabinets are extremely dated, painted, but dated, right? The trim is a little bit dated. They have replaced the tile in one of the bathrooms. Looks pretty good, right? Not in terrible shape. It's currently selling for $405,000, which, based on this neighborhood, my instinct is this is probably a deal. We'd have to dig a little bit deeper to determine that to be an actual deal. That's where the analysis process really kicks in. But for today's objectives, Privy says that one nearby on East Serendipity, very similar square footage above grade, and a bigger basement by a little bit, but sold in January of 24 for for $545,000. So that indicates that this has the possibilities to be a deal. While we're in the analysis phase, we want to look at the competition, which is generally properties that have sold nearby and what's actively listed, but we really care about what's sold nearby to determine the value. You can see right away they spent a lot more money and effort on the design, right? Cabinets are newer, not the color I would have used, but definitely newer. It's got granite countertops, right? It's got nice fixtures and hardware, so that's a nice factor here. These appliances have been updated. And remember, a lot of the remodel that we're looking for goes into what? The kitchen and the bathroom, right? Because those are the primary areas that people are focused on. This was kind of a cool feature. Do you see this glass wall? They put it instead of a railing system. You know, that's a little bit more pricey than a railing, but it certainly looks very nice. And adds to the design quite a bit. They didn't go over the top on the remodel, but the property sold for $545,000. So if we were buying the property on Wold, we'd want to do a determination during our analysis that if we could fix the property to look similar to this one, because keep in mind, we're looking for stuff that's sold within the last 6 months or so, that's within about a mile. This is 0.229 miles away, a third of a mile away. This sold for a much higher price than what we'd be buying ours at. And you can see here that it has a 2-car garage versus our 1-car. Right? So a couple of factors that make it slightly superior, but all in all, a very close property that sold for the mid-5s. So we know that we can build our scope of work on the Wold property to address that. Okay. We don't want to over improve it or go too far to get to that 545. We don't want to under improve it or leave stuff on the table that might aggravate the buyer or make it less than desirable for the buyer, making us have to reduce the price to sell it. Okay, so it really is about finding that balance. And as you get more sophisticated in real estate investing, finding that balance becomes easier and easier to determine. However, when you're first getting started, it's very easy to get emotional about the purchase because, listen, I've been guilty of it myself. The house becomes your baby in a lot of ways, right? You've seen it come from this little crappy house that nobody would want to live in to this gorgeous remodel. And it's very easy to get caught up with, well, if we just added a little bit more here or here or here, the buyer would appreciate it. We might get more money from it. Sometimes that's the case, but very often the key is to just fix it exactly to market, what has sold currently in the marketplace, because interest rates largely determine what the buyer is going to be willing to pay for based on the fact that payments have gone up. Okay, so again, over-improving results in overpricing. And overpricing is more time on market. Under-improving results in getting to a condition that's less than desirable, and now the buyer doesn't want the property or looks for something else. Okay, we are trying to find that middle ground. If you are just getting started in real estate investing, you're going to struggle to do this without getting a little bit emotional about it, and it's just much easier for me as your coach to be completely subjective about this and go, here are the numbers. We build that. We put a scope together that reflects that desire, reflects the desire to get to a condition that's going to work to be marketable on the market as it sits today. Okay. Then when we fund the property, we present a budget to our lenders that says it's going to cost us, and I'm very much painting a broad stroke here, but let's say we agree that's a $50,000 remodel. Well, does this work at a $50K remodel? Well, let's do the math on that real quick. Okay. We're going back to the Wold deal, but pop my screen. And if we're going back to the Wold deal at 405 and we've agreed that we're going to spend $50K on the remodel, and where are we going to spend that? Well, $10,000 on the kitchen probably. We want to update the cabinets, countertops, appliances, etc. $3,000 in appliances alone. Cabinets are probably going to be $2,000 or $3,000. The countertops, we can easily spend $2,000 on granite. A nice backsplash. So we're probably $10,000 into the kitchen. We're updating the flooring just to modernize it a bit. We're replacing some of the vanities. The tile might actually make it, right? I think it would be difficult to spend $50,000 on this house, but let's say we did. If we spent $50,000 on this property, we'd be in it if we bought it for 405, for 455, and our desire is to use the only comp we currently have. We can obviously get more comparables during our analysis phase, but we have one at 545. If we look at the other sold comps, we've got some other stuff that went for much less. Here's one on Devon that went for 504. Okay, so we want to be very careful that we don't use the only comp that we find, but the reason that one popped up is because Privy identifies what it believes to be an investment property, something that was purchased and sold within a relatively short period of time, right? And that's why it triggered on serendipity. We're investors, so we want to use that investor data. If we're looking at normal retail comps, though, here's another one that sold in April, a little more recently, for 504. Right? We want to take a look at the inside of that one, see what they did. They neutralized the paint, still got kind of dated flooring. They didn't go over the top, but it's a nice property for sure, right? Nice deck, etc. Slightly updated with the cabinets. My point is 50K should be the worst case scenario on this remodel. Okay, if we bought it for 405, we spent 50, and we're hoping to sell for 540, then we've got a spread of about $90,000 after repairs. We're then splitting that spread because we have to factor in cost of funds, agent commissions, closing costs, et cetera, right? That leaves about a 45K profit on this deal. Our target is to make $25,000 per deal, so this is worth researching further. This is worth negotiating to see if we can get a lower price on it than the 405, right? We've determined based on the comps that this is worth having a conversation to move further on. A lot of new investors waste a lot of time chasing bad deals. That energy they expend between their day job, whatever they got to do for their profession, means they find deals that are not necessarily good deals, right? And then they got to, get through the process of analyzing that deal further, realize it's not a good deal, or worse still, go under contract, have to find a way out of that deal, and go through that whole process of backing out. It's a pain. Okay. In my program, we are finding, analyzing, and helping you to fund the deal. So by the time it gets to you and you own that property, then you're fixing it to market based on the scope of work we determined while we're in the analysis phase. Okay. And then we're selling it for what we believe we're going to sell it for, based on the market conditions at the time. Okay, all of this means that this is not a completely passive investment vehicle, but it's a semi-passive vehicle where you can maintain your day job, whatever it is you do for a living throughout the day, and then work with me and my team to find that deal for you, analyze that deal on your behalf, fund it with my lenders, fix it with the rehab teams that I've already put together, and then flip the deal at a profit so you keep that profit. And why do I do all of it? Well, obviously I make a little bit of money for coaching, but I also make some money for locating the deals on your behalf. I add a markup or an assignment fee to the deal, works out to be somewhere between 10 and 20 grand. And as long as it leaves the minimal profit of $25,000, then we identify that as a deal and we move forward with it. You don't have to go find the deals on your own. You're not doing the analysis on your own. Don't have to worry about the funding, et cetera, because that's what you're paying for with the coaching. Is this for everybody? No, it's only for people who understand the power of real estate as an investment. See, everybody wants to be a real estate investor. I've never met anybody who didn't want to do this. But if you don't understand the power behind the semi-passive nature of putting together the right team, just like buying a Subway franchise, right? You didn't buy a Subway franchise in most cases because you're super passionate about making sandwiches. Right? I like sandwiches, don't get me wrong, but when you buy a Subway franchise, you're buying the business around the sandwiches. Does that make sense? That is very much the foreclosure profit system and what I offer to you as your investment coach. Along the way, you're going to encounter some resistance. You're going to encounter some concerns. You're going to do things that are probably not good because you're inexperienced at this, and my job is to steer you in the right direction. We're doing a lot of deals in the Pueblo market right now because that's where the money is currently moving. But everybody I talk to about Pueblo feels the same way. I don't like Pueblo. I don't want to go to Pueblo. That is all fact. I don't like Pueblo either. But the fact of the matter is we are chasing where the money is currently operating. And as your coach, I'm taking the emotion, the feeling out of it. And we're just running this by the numbers. So ultimately you can keep the profit on as many deals as you want to put together in a given year. Okay, so that's kind of the correlation between the analysis phase and the fixing phase. Once we've analyzed it properly, we're looking at the market, we build our scope of work and we instruct our contractors to build the deal or remodel the deal to those specs. We're not over improving, we're not under improving. We're looking at the house subjectively to determine what the market is currently consuming and at what price it's consuming it at. And then we're making our executive decisions on the remodel based on that. Okay, not doing that is very emotional, and emotion and investing do not work well together. You really have to pull yourself out of the emotions of this, and that's gotten difficult with the flipping shows creating a fictional like a dopamine high, if you will, and they show the before and the after, and it's so exciting. And it is. And I got to be honest, I've been doing it for years. There is a great feeling that comes from taking an ugly house that's dragging down a neighborhood and making it pretty. There's a great feeling that comes from talking to the neighbors who've been looking at this eyesore for months or even years, wishing this thing would go away. Right. And now you've come in and fixed that problem. So I definitely want that feeling, but you have to separate that from the investment vehicle. And that's a big part of what we do with the foreclosure profit system and how we help you to continually do deals by taking that emotion out of it, looking at the numbers, and during the analysis phase, building it to what the market will allow at the moment. So love to have any questions. If anybody's out there has questions on that, I'd love to chat with you guys about that. But, when you really look at this business as a business, it's not really rocket science, right? It's the ability to buy low and then sell high. The issue is all that stuff in between, the finding a deal that's low and the flipping a deal on the other hand that's high. You have to go through the analysis. You got to get it funded. You got to get it fixed, and then you got to get sold. Right? That all those processes in between, that adds up to a little bit of stress if you don't know what you're doing. And that continued stress will take a toll on you. That takes away from the other things you want to do in life, like be with your family, work on your job, travel, go on vacation, etc. The idea behind the system is that it's not completely eliminating that stress, because this is a business and you have to be involved with the business, but rather that creating a system where you can take the emotion out of it, so you're doing this correctly at every stage of the process, so the stress is reduced to almost eliminated, allowing you to do more deals in less time and produce a higher profit as you do so. Right? I hope that makes sense for you today, guys. And, really, we're tackling these things every single day for our clientele. We are very close to hitting the 50 clients I want to be locally. Not all of them are active, and so we're going to have some spaces available till we get to 50 active clients buying deals. The target is that they buy 4 deals per year at a bare minimum. And if you're buying 4 deals per year, then the system's going to turn off 200 deals per year, right? Based on what the system brings in from assignment fees. It's a very lucrative business, but it's only going to be profitable if my clients are actually doing deals. This is very different than a lot of the systems out there that make money from selling education. They make money from selling mentorship or information, okay? And I'm not saying you don't need information. I'm saying that the investment vehicle doesn't require that you fully understand it. Here's an example. You can buy Apple stock without fully understanding how to build an iPhone, right? You can make a lot of money from that investment vehicle without being a part of that investment vehicle. That's very much how this flipping business works with the foreclosure profit system. You need to understand the basics behind it, and the more of it you do, the more you're going to understand, which is obviously going to make you a better investor. But to get started, what most people need is some hand-holding to find the deals on their behalf and help them through the analysis phase and funding phases so they can start on the construction, get that done, and then get it sold. And even in the construction phase, we've got a project manager we assign to you, an operations manager who works with you, an entire team around that. So this thing will sail through construction. And that's how most of my clients are based in other parts of the country, not even here in Colorado. They don't have to physically see the property ever if they don't want to, because we're doing all those pieces for them so they can ultimately reap the rewards from it, then come back and buy another deal. It's a very logical system when you really break it into its parts. With that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for today because I am definitely struggling a little bit. If you have any questions that I can answer for you, please reach out in my DMs, slide in my DMs, send me a comment, tell me what you're struggling with, what's stopping you from getting started in the market. A lot of people are just not certain this is the real deal, and I get that. That's why I try to bring on active clients who are actually doing deals as often as I can so I can dispel some of those fears. But I really think if we have one face-to-face conversation, maybe I show you a couple of deals we're working on right now, get a feel for how this whole thing works, I can set those fears at ease. And if you are a serious investor who's got access to some capital to do deals, because that is a prerequisite, okay, then I can help you to do deals actively, as many deals as you want to do, and walk you through all the phases that we can. All right. With that, guys, I want to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you tuning into the show each and every single week, and looking forward to working with you as we advance your investment journey. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, remember, don't buy a house, buy a deal.